What is the dumbest myth you ever heard? Danny DeVito isn't that hot. It's interesting that such a mildly stated myth could have me so enraged. The barnacle. Mantis. 2020 is gonna be great. I was talking with a young Earth creationist one time who was attempting to explain away the radiological dating that proves the Earth is billions of years old. His claim was as follows. When the Great Flood, the one with Noah, began, great springs of water from within the Earth erupted onto the surface. The great seismic force of this event shocked quartz deposits so much that they superheated, to the point where they were essentially nuclear breeder reactors. Which is where all the world's radioactive elements came from. Bonus crazy claim. Those radioactive elements in the Earth's crust are why modern humans only live to a maximum of 125 or so. While pre-flood figures like Noah, Adam, and Seth lived to be 800 plus. It is true that when struck with great force, quartz can emit teeny tiny electrical charges. But this is beyond ludicrous. If you are in a cold environment, you'll catch a cold. Yeah. It's not that the cold air makes you sick. But it's generally good to avoid breathing cold air if you're already sick, as it's harsher for your lungs and whatnot and can potentially worsen your condition. That is true. But the cold does not cause sickness. I agree completely and made a similar comment on a similar thread years ago and got catapulted down the Reddit hellhole of weird. I was a bit new and definitely naive, so when I mentioned being cold doesn't make you sick, I thought that was pretty much the end of it. Wow, were there a lot of motivated people who disagreed with me. If you pee 4 times a day, you'll die. My brother got me with this one when I was 4. That coronavirus comes from 5G. It's so dumb. That 5G conspiracy isn't even new. Just repackaged. Of course. They avoid the fact that there are confirmed coronavirus cases in areas without 5G towers. Then how the F are there cases in Germany? Where are those little FCKERS hidden? I want 5G. 5G isn't really for the end consumer. It is better to think of it as building the infrastructure for the next wave of point-to-point object communication. Like the Roman aqueducts for being able to expand the population of a city. The issue with deploying this system is pretty great, however. With the heavy costs of doing anything, companies need the income basis to help back the upfront cost of deploying said system. Since the systems that will work with 5G are not fully or even partially developed yet, much less deployed to the public, there is no inherent value in building that infrastructure. Bermuda Triangle. A relative tried to convince me that if you spoke nicely to plants, they'll grow more. If you're mean to them, they'll die. She really believed in this because it was a study done by Japanese doctors. Quote, for some reason, Japanese doctors is like the calling card of bullshit on Facebook. Because idiots assume that Japanese people are just smarter or better. And could never be a fraud, con man, or some Westerner making up bullshit and adding Japanese doctor said so to the end. Anyway, she learned all this from a screenshot on Facebook, and when I did even 1% of digging, I found the whole study was really poor, biased, generally bullshit. My relative doesn't really know how to read scientific studies, so believed that if any study says X is true, then it must be true. She's just unaware of the fact that studies can be wrong, or made up by hacks and frauds. So because of this, she believed someone when they said, it's true but not for the reason you think it is. Basically, it doesn't matter what words you say. But if you speak gently, then the vibrations of your voice will heal the plant. But violent vibrations will destroy it. So okay, all you've done there is take this myth from the spiritual and make it sound slightly more scientific. But vibrational healing is still FG quackery as far as I'm aware. And your voice really probably has little effect on your plant. This is true because I also read the same thing. Shrek is a kid's movie. When I was a kid, 10 I guess. A close friend told me that by watching horror films, our hearts become weak, and comedy movies strengthen our hearts. I waked out of the horror movie we were watching and I've never watched one again. I'm 20 now. Injecting disinfectant will cure you of COVID-19. Somewhere some comic book writer is hating that the plot of his original superhero comic, 99% Man, has become a real joke. The school was built over a cemetery, heard it on each school I went to. Technically the entire Earth is a cemetery. We walk above 4.55 billion years worth of death. I'm uncomfortable. That'll be the spirits of the dead prodding you in the BT. A friend told me fairies exist. He showed me a blurry picture of a hummingbird to back his claims. Had a website too that had all these sightings. That if you use a mirror to reflect light into the house, your house would become haunted and would get abandoned eventually. My mill got mad at me for reaching up high to grab something while pregnant because that'll wrap the umbilical cord around the baby's neck. I told her that no part of my anatomy directly connects my arms to the inside of my placenta. She didn't believe me, so I googled to show her it's an old wives' tale. She got upset and cried. Sweet lady, but DN. Use some common sense. A friend of mine got really mad at me when I mentioned hanging out loads of washing on the line while heavily pregnant. This was 2009. She had kids of her own and was around my age. Early 20s. So it must have just been some old wives' tale that got passed down to her and she'd never bothered to think about the logic of it. She insisted that I was putting my baby at risk of cord strangulation by raising my arms above my head. I mean, I'm sure most of these superstitions have a basis in common sense, like heavily pregnant women should probably rest as much as they need to and partners, family should help lighten their workload where possible, but we can just say that and not make up some wild story about death and devastation. Right? Just world fallacy strikes again. Miscarriages and stillborn babies are hard for people to process. But add in the visual of strangulation and it just gets worse. People want to think it could have been prevented in order to ease their minds. That leads them to blaming the mother and explaining the events as a result of her actions. It's disappointing but human nature to seek meaning when things go wrong. It makes me wonder what the world would be like if we were all properly educated about the risks of pregnancy and childbirth, and aware of just how common it is for things to go wrong. I luckily had 2 pretty textbook pregnancies and healthy kiddos, but was very anxious the whole time about the fact that 90% of the experience was a matter of luck and I had almost no ability to influence the outcome, aside from everything in the Bible itself. My mom told me that Bibles could not burn because they contained the Word of God, so God protected them from being destroyed. She told me there were many instances of entire houses burning down but the Bible's remaining intact and virtually unscathed. So I burned a Bible when I was about 8 years old. Myth busted. Drinking water every 5 minutes will help prevent COVID-19 because it will wash the virus into your stomach and be destroyed by stomach acid. Quote, I don't even know where to start about how wrong this is. When I had cancer a few years back and was doing chemotherapy, I had people who constantly questioned that I actually had cancer due to the fact that my hair didn't fall out until I was actually in remission. Had been off chemo for about 2 to 3 weeks when my hair started gradually thinning and falling out. It's a complete myth that every single person's hair will have the same reaction to chemo. Some people lose hair right away. Some don't. Everybody is different. Oncologist here. It also depends greatly on what type of chemo used. Some cause the hair to fall off pretty much straight away, while others might cause the hair to thin out gradually or not be affected at all. My grandma did not lose her hair. But then again, I can't remember if she went through chemo or not when she had cancer. At least she beat cancer's ass. Yay for your grandma. Breatharianism. The idea that people can live without food and all we really need to survive is oxygen. Not sure how this group still exists. Knew one guy who told me that you can get everything you need directly from the sun. Poor guy burnt out his retinas and now he thinks he can see God. Man, that's messed up. Not sure exactly what it is. But stories about insane people like this make me feel mildly amused, moderately sad, and markedly disturbed all at once. Hope that guy gets the help he needs. They are obviously cheating. Fruit seeds in stomach grows into trees. A children myth at least. Washing clothes on New Year's Eve will wash away your loved one. IKBOW it is washing clothes between Christmas and New Year's turn them into shrouds, thus killing someone you know in the next year. It's something my mom said not to sue her about it though. In Germany it's more like, when you have laundry hanging over New Year's Eve you will have more laundry to do over the year. Another thing I know is that if you wash and hang your bed sheets during the rough nights, it will be used as a shroud in the next year. A moron I worked with swore that the Diet Pepsi I was drinking was flavored with aborted fetuses from Planned Parenthood. He was serious. Google it. This dude had tattoos on his eyelids too. So not real bright to begin with. Gives it a real umami flavor. I hear. Huh. Looked this up. Seems there is quite the history of various food containing aborted fetuses. At least as a conspiracy theory. As recently as 1993. When I had my youngest child. There were people telling me during my pregnancy to get rid of my cat because it would get in the crib and take the baby's breath away. The fact that I had an almost 4-year-old who survived household cats didn't hold water with them. That being extremely overweight isn't bad for your health. And calling someone obese is an insult. Your birthday decides who you are as a person. That's such an Aries thing to say. That's such a Taurus thing to say. Shut up. UFG Capricorns. Flat Earth. Just WTF man. I still believe this started as a question everything mindset. Which is not wrong in itself. But as this idea spread, people started taking this literal, which is why it's such a big movement nowadays. Conspiracy theories are mostly a consequence of power imbalance, which is why they mostly affect low-income, low-education people. People feel powerless and search for hidden knowledge to explain it. The question everything mindset can be quite healthy, but you need to know when your questions have been proved with facts. Oh, maybe the whole coronavirus is a DOJ ruse concocted by Donald Trump to serve as cover for rolling up all the baby-eating Hollywood pedophile industrial complex. Including Tom Hanks, Rita Wilson, Oprah, Ellen DeGeneres, the Clintons of course, and many, many others. Xbox Live is a weird place if people think you're not judging them. That Guam is at risk of tipping over. Shaving makes hair grow back faster and more coarse. My mom thinks every hair removal method, even plucking, makes it grow, but wax is a magical substance that thins it. This is because of the illusion of the thinned-out tip is chopped off in shaving, leaving a blunt part of the thicker part of the shaft at the tip. In other words, you're seeing the lower shaft now at the tip. Same thickness. That Karens, entitled parents, think their name is a slur and racist. Vaccines cause autism. Like, first of all, autism isn't a disease any more than not being autistic is a disease. And even if vaccines did cause autism, are you saying it's better to have a dead kid than an autistic one? I'm autistic and I don't know why people are so afraid to have an autistic kid. I mean, we're not stupid or anything, just a bit different. The Taliban used to believe that we, U.S. forces, trained small animals to pilot drones. I listened to this over their radio frequency translated by an interpreter. It was a good laugh. Definitely the Korean urban myth of sleeping with a fan on, will you? I've heard it explained as the blades chopping up the air, creating gaps so that you suffocate in your sleep. If that was true, I'd long be dead by now. It's absolute nonsense. I'm falling asleep with my ceiling fan on right now and nothing is happening. My fan looks mighty suspicious. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.